Coming to paperback and e-readers, Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer. Take a trip into the macabre world of goth modeling in the new millennium in this all-new Spinsterella story. Pre-order your copy of Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer at Amazon.com and other online booksellers everywhere. There's been talk of giving Americans a $5,000 baby bonus in order to motivate them to have more children. $5,000 won't even cover the Similac for a baby's first year. Now, this whole proposal is one taken from one in Hungary, where the Hungarian president, Viktor Orban, decided to launch a tax exemption for mothers in order to incentivize them in order to have more children. However, this proposal would basically fall completely apart here in America because one of the reasons why many Americans are not having children and are not interested in having children is due to the sheer cost of trying to take care of a child in this country. Now, when it comes down to most Americans on average only make about $45,000 a year at most. And when it comes to most Americans, they can barely afford to keep a roof over their heads with just that single salary. Some Americans have to even take out a second or third job and have a side hustle just to make ends meet. And here we have the government thinking that offering people $5,000 will incentivize them to have children when the entire economy is one that is not sustainable for most people to go out here and have children. Now, what's happening here with America as related to things is that many of these wealthy are upset and afraid of the birth rates declining, and as these individuals are very afraid of the birth rates declining, they're afraid of their own genetic annihilation. Unfortunately, that genetic annihilation is them reaping what they sowed, greater than what they sowed when their fathers and grandfathers tried to play God way back in the 1940s and the 1950s. Now, back in the 1940s and 1950s, this is where the previous generation of wealthy elite came up with a grand plan because they wanted to go out here and try to reshape society, and what they wanted to do was destroy the American family, and they wanted to destroy the American family because they wanted to go out here and think they could go out here and socially engineer a new, better family than the one God established. And these wealthy, such as the Rockefellers, look to go out and take the father out of the home, and then have the woman go and work, and they would be able to go out here and generate revenue from having two people generating tax applications and tax forms. And as those man and the woman were working to go out here and again working on jobs, what would happen is the children would be in front of a television, and as they would be in front of this television, they could program the idea of them becoming the next generation of consumers. And as they look to program them to become the next generation of consumers, they further pushed their new society by pushing the feminist movement in the 1960s to divide the man from the woman and change the roles of both the man and the woman in God's order. And the wealthy thought then they would be able to create a new, better society. Unfortunately, almost 60 to 70 years later, we see how their new society is falling completely apart because you have the man out here working and you have the woman out here working, and as both of them are working, what happened is the woman is focused more on her career than going out here and building a family because the feminists told her she had all the time in the world to go out here and establish a family and to put her career first. And as the white woman went out here putting her career first, she put off having children. And as she put off having children, what she was doing was working to climb the corporate ladder. And as she climbed the corporate ladder, she then took a ride on the what they call cock carousel. And as she was riding that carousel, she was looking to go out here and participate in hypergamy, looking to find that high value man, the man of her dreams, the social construct that Madison Avenue in Hollywood created, who would be the man who would sweep her off her feet and then give her the life of her dreams. And what has happened is as she looks for that dream man, she isn't interested in going out here and having children, and she's not interested in having children because you took this woman out of her role in God's order. And as you took this woman out of her role in God's order as being a helpmeet to God and helping her serve this man who would be the steward who she was supposed to serve. And as they were supposed to serve God, they were supposed to have children that they would teach the gospel to. No, the wealthy did not want that. No, they wanted them worshiping their empire of mammon. And as those children who were survivors, again, worshiped their empire of mammon, what they were looking to do was not look to serve God by building a family. No, they were looking to go out here and build a whole home filled with idols and be a part of that consumerist idolatry. And that's what has led to the complete collapse of America's birth rates and all the birth rates in the West and even in countries in the East like Korea. All of them basically wound up falling completely apart, all because many of the wealthy, again, wanted to continue to play God and reshape society. And as they looked to reshape society, what they hoped to do was maintain their wealth base. And as they looked to maintain their wealth base, they didn't see how there was a trade-off coming in that if people are working to go out here and have these careers, then they wouldn't have time to make a family. And that's where these guys are reaping what they sowed, greater than what they sowed, later than what they sowed, and it's a bitter harvest because they can't stay wealthy. No, they can't stay wealthy because if people are not having children, what's happening is you're not going to have that next generation of consumers that you had previously with Gen X, Millennials, and Gen Z. No, you're running into a place where people are not able to not only have the time to have children, but also can't afford to raise them because you didn't want to invest in your people. No, many of the wealthy have expressed contempt for people until they realize, oh, you need people. But the whole thing is you don't want to, again, show love for people. No, all you're thinking about is how much money you're going to lose in the long term. And what you want to try to do is offset that cost by going out here and trying to motivate people to have children. But $5,000 won't even, again, cover the baby formula for just a couple of months. No, $5,000 ain't going to even cover the baby formula. And when it comes down to most Americans, again, most Americans these days, they basically are in a bad situation as related to things because these jobs just don't pay enough. I mean, a job paying $45,000 a year maximum ain't gonna cover basic cost. I mean, these days, because of all of the wealthy hoarding all the houses with companies like BlackRock, a house costs $500,000. A car costs $50,000, but you're asking a person to go out here who only makes about maximum $45,000 to go out here and be able to have a family when they can't even afford the basic amenities that you need to take care of a family. And that's where we have this just complete tone deafness and disconnect from many of the wealthy who go out here and look to make these proposals for people to have children. Well, how can people have children when you need at least 2 incomes just to be able to barely pay the rent? And you can't even buy a brand new car. I mean, the average brand new car these days costs $50,000. minimum, and the house is again $500,000. So how are you going to be able to feed and care for children when people ain't making enough money? Critical question I want to ask the wealthy. I mean, how does somebody go out here and have an incentive to have children when they are in an economy where everything basically costs too much? I mean, everything costs way too much and continues to go even higher, not only due to inflation, but due to us having all these speculators hoarding everything and keeping everybody from getting their opportunity to have the American dream, because the wealthy want to hoard property to keep people from having homes. They want to go out here and drive up the cost of things like cars that people need for basic transportation. I mean, people can barely afford to feed themselves, and in many cases, they can barely afford to even keep a job these days, because one of the things that really keeps a lot of people from even thinking about getting married or having kids is the fact that their whole life is so unstable. I mean, from 1991 all the way to now, the job market has become extremely unstable. I remember in 1991, when we had the recession under George H.W. Bush, we went from people having jobs for 20 years to people having jobs for 10 years, and then under Bill Clinton, and then after Bill Clinton left and we went into George H.W. Bush, we went to people having jobs for 5 to 7 years, and then under Barack Obama, we went from people having a job from 5 to 7 years to barely 3 years. And towards the end of the Obama presidency, people were barely keeping a job 18 months. So how can a person go out here and start a life when the whole job market is a vicious cycle where people basically are looking for a job just as they just got a job, and they can't get stable, because in order to start a family, you need to have a stable life for a couple of years. You need to be able to get enough money to be able to get your own place. You need to be able to get enough money to be able to afford having a wife. You need to be able to get enough money to be able to again buy a home. These are all steps a person has to take towards getting towards stability, but a lot of people can't even get a start, and I know this from personal experience. You can't even get a start because many of these companies don't even last that long. I mean, you can go out here today these days, and the longest you're going to stay at a job might be anywhere from a year to maybe 18 months. And again, you can't start your life and start thinking about having kids with jobs that only last 18 months. I mean, this is what flies over the heads of the wealthy, because they have all of this money, and as they have all this money, they're sitting up here, oh, I'm so concerned about, oh, the birth rates are going down. Well, if I don't have the fiscal stability, I can't think about anything except day to day, and that's where many people from Gen X, Millennials, Gen Z, and the future generations are. We're in a place where there's no stability. No, we don't have the stability that the baby boomers had. The baby boomers had that stability as you were looking to reshape your new age society, which is now coming back to you because you went out here and took the father out of the home, took him out of his role that God established for him as the head, as the steward, because you thought that you could do better by programming people through your television shows and your movies and stuff like that. And you also thought that having the woman be out here in these jobs would help things, but with that white woman on the job in the place that the black man was supposed to be, that basically destabilized both the black and white family homes. And again, without that father there to provide that order and that structure, that's why you got the chaos you got right now, because a generation of wealthy elite thought, oh, we don't need to have that father in the home because we don't want to, again, give that father economic power. We don't want to give that father political power. We don't want to compete with that father. And now what's happened is, because that father wasn't there for 3 generations, what's happened is you've got this group of old complacent men who are now terrified of losing their legacies, losing their dynasties, and basically seeing their whole world fall completely apart. And it's all because what they wanted to do was go out here and play God and believe that they were God and wanted to believe that they could make their names go on forever. They talk all about this in the Psalms, how these rich men want to keep their names going on forever, but the only name that will go on is Jesus Christ. That is the only name that will go on because he is the Son of God, and his sacrifice is one everyone will remember because he paid the sin debts of all mankind, and all efforts to try to reshape society under man will always fail because God made the world, and as he made the world to only work one way, and that is his way. But what we had were a group of wealthy individuals who thought that they were smarter than God, and as they thought they were smarter than God, they wanted to reshape society. Unfortunately, all their efforts to reshape society have wound up crumbling like they did with the Egyptians, like it did with the Romans, like it did with the Babylonians, like it did with the Israelites. Again, all of them wanted to defy God, and as they wanted to defy the Most High, what happened to all of their empires is that they crumbled into dust. And again, this is what's happening here in the West, because the only empire that will go on forever is the kingdom of heaven, and that flies over the heads of these men as related to them preserving their mortality, because what's really got them scared, again, is their fear of their mortality. Many of these men know that they are old. Many of them know that they're getting older, and they see that there are no heirs. And again, there are no heirs, ironically, because of their ancestors and their behavior in looking to reshape society. And again, they wanted to take the man and the woman out of God's order to create their own order. And now they're thinking, oh, I'll give somebody $5,000 and this will lead to people having children. No, 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 it's not going to work because you did not invest in men. No, you didn't invest in your man because, again, the man is the head, the man is the steward, the man is the one you should have been investing in. But no, they wanted to invest in the female because they thought, oh, she'd be submissive and more docile and more easy to control. But what's happened is your society has gone completely out of control because you wanted to work her for cheap. And now that you were looking for this cheap labor, you're hoping that it'll pay off, but it's not going to pay off because, again, a person making 45 grand can't afford the lifestyle of America anymore. I mean, Americans can't afford to buy new cars. Americans can't even afford to even buy groceries. And you're talking about having more kids. And this is what's basically flying over the heads of the wealthy all across the globe, whether it be here in America, whether it be in countries like Hungary, or whether it be in countries like Korea or Japan. Again, you're having birth rates decline because you wanted to keep millions of men out of the workforce because you didn't want to compete against those men. And as you became complacent, you have this woman out here not understanding the woman's job as a helpmeet was to help the man and help in God's order. She had a specific role created by God, had created a specific role where she was supposed to help the man as related to marrying the man. And as she was supposed to marry the man, she was supposed to be the one managing his children. But no, she's in your office managing your business and submitted to you in a codependent relationship. Meanwhile, the men who were supposed to work, they're basically sitting at home. And they're sitting at home not because they want to be there, because many of these men want to work, but the women who you put in power basically are gatekeeping and keeping those men out, and you don't even want those men there because you're afraid of losing your empire. But the irony is that the whole approach you had, the grand scheme that was there, is causing your empire to slide into the sand, and slide into the sand because you don't want to concede that you're wrong. Don't want to concede that you're wrong. No, come up with a scheme talking about $5,000. Again, $5,000 wouldn't even cover 3 months of Similac and diapers for one child. $5 grand wouldn't even cover the health care for any child. No, $5 grand ain't even a drop in the bucket in raising a child, because you need at least about, I'd say, $5 to $6 million to raise a child in this country. As related to caring for them over 18 years, you're going to need money for them to be able to get their health care. You're going to need money for them to go to a school and to provide them with give them a quality education. You're going to need money for them to be able to have extracurricular activities, because sitting them in front of a screen all day, that's not healthy. You're going to need money for them to, after they go to elementary school, junior high school, and when they're young, go into daycare, because again, you don't want the mama to stay home and raise that child. No, you're going to need money to raise a child, but you don't want to go out here and pay for those children. That's what really irks me about these wealthy types. You don't want to pay for those children by investing in that man and teaching him how to be a father. No, you go out here, you want people to have children, but you don't want to put a dime down on taking care of those children and taking care of their needs, or even giving people time. Again, you have to give people time so that they can care for their children. I mean, you can't have people working 12, 14 hours a day. No, you don't want people to have time for that. And that's where it really irks me, again, about these wealthy types. They want children, but don't want to, again, sacrifice to take care of those children. I mean, you're going to have to cut back on these crazy hours, on these jobs. You're going to have to pay people more money, and you're going to have to, again, let go of all this housing that you're hoarding so that people can have a place to stay. I mean, people say, oh, we want children, but again, do you want to build infrastructure that allows a family to be cared for like we had in your so-called golden age of the 1950s and 1960s? Are you looking to invest in people? No, and the answer resoundingly is no. From when you think about guys like these Elon Musks and Jeff Bezos and many of these billionaires, when it comes to these guys, they're all talking a good game about family, but they're not investing a dime in family, and that's what makes them completely full of it. And that's why I have to laugh when I see things like the government idea of $5,000 for you to go out here and have a child. Again, $5,000 won't even, and I'll repeat it once more, won't even cover the Similac for 3 months and the diapers for 3 months. I mean, it won't even cover, again, things that you're going to need. I mean, when it comes to the real solution, again, for your low birth rates, you're going to have to get rid of all this feminism and start investing in your men, first of all. I mean, you're going to have to start asking that 7 million men like myself who have been sitting for about 15, 20 years to come back to the workforce, and you're not going to be able to, again, pay no $15 an hour. You're going to have to pay like $50, $60 an hour for those men to come back to be making a living wage to take care of a family. And you're going to have to go out here and, again, cut these working hours so that that man has time to be a father and teach his kids values, because we can't have that TV or that internet teaching kids values, because the internet has shown, again, with all of its misinformation, this is why we got all these mass shooters out here, because these people sit here and read conspiracy theories because they don't have their own pop culture. Again, you're going to have to take some time and let that father come back into his home and, again, establish the gospel. Again, don't want to do that, but you're going to have to do that if you want a family, and you're also going to have to give that man time for himself. Again, he ain't going to be able to work no 12, 14 hours anymore. But again, these are sacrifices that would need to be made, but many of the wealthy don't want to make those sacrifices. No, they want a quick fix because they fear their own mortality. But again, you took over 60 years to destroy the American family, and you want to fix it real quick. No, it ain't going to get fixed quick, and it may not get fixed at all, because when it comes to civilizations, if you study history, all of them fell apart for almost the exact same reasons. Again, when we look at Rome, it was the rise of the feminists and the debauchery of the wealthy that led to the complete collapse of Rome. Same thing with Babylon, same thing with Egypt. Again, they thought they could do better than God and wound up, again, trying to mock God. But God is not mocked. As a man sows, so shall he reap. And when it comes to God's word is always true. God's word is always true, and man is always shown to be a liar. And any scheme that he makes is just a lie that he tells to himself to believe that he can be just as smart as God when his knowledge is just complete foolishness. And it shows right here with a $5,000 thing talking about, oh, this will help you have a child. I mean, this is complete foolishness when you think about it, because the whole thing that America needs to do is repent and again look to go to God. But that's not what they want to do, because they want to make America great again. But the whole thing is, you can't get greatness when you're living in sin, and you promoted living in sin as a norm. No, you can't get get greatness, because only greatness comes from obedience to God, and this country hasn't been obedient to God ever since its inception. I mean, they never followed those two commandments, which were to love the Lord with all your heart, soul, and strength, because they were worshiping mammon, and everything about this country was about mammon. And they never learn to love their neighbor as themselves, based on the way they treated the Native Americans, the way they treated foundational black Americans, and the way they've been treating foundational black Americans for years. I mean, you can't get people to have incentive to have children, again, when you're creating children of the corn. And when it comes down to this whole situation, you have a situation that is a complete mess. And again, a mess that the wealthy don't want to admit is their own creation of their ancestors, who are making you reap what you sowed, greater than what you sowed, later than what you sowed, because these low birth rates are a result of your greed. And yeah, you may have it all for a moment, but it may be left to a group of heirs who may take it straight into the dust. And that's what many of these wealthy fear. Their whole empires being ground into the dust, but it's all ground into the dust by the folly of your greed. And again, that's what's happening here to the wealthy. They want to again think they can go out here and repopulate society, because originally they called all of us people useless eaters. But that's what the guy Klaus Schwab had said. Oh, they're useless eaters, and they will own nothing and be happy. But you own nothing at all without the help of the people being consumers. And again, now you're reaping what you sowed, later than what you sowed, greater than what you sowed, because you did black people wrong. And again, one of the reasons why this nation is in the place that it's in is because it refuses to do right by black people. I mean, you denied the black man his job, you gave it to a white woman, now your birth rates are low, and you can't connect that dot. You don't want to give the black man anything tangible, and I don't want the black man to have power. And because you didn't want black men to have power, now you're basically fearing your own genetic annihilation as a result of your own hand. And again, if you gave black people reparations, it might be able to save things, but the whole thing is they don't want to pay black people what they're due. They don't even want to pay the average American what they're due. And that's why you have people who are sitting up here having to work 14 hours a day, because they can't get any bearings and can't start making momentum. I mean, the average American from the 1940s to the 1980s could at least go out here and get a good job, work for 20 years, be able to buy a home, be able to have children, be able to have good schools. But today, you can barely afford to even get a meal at Burger King, because the wages are so low and the prices are so high. And the whole idea that we have is, oh, have more children that you can't afford, not understanding the reason why people aren't having children is because the cost of living is so high, and nobody wants to deal with the cost of living, because the wealthy, again, want to hoard all this money that basically will become worthless if there are no people around. And instead of looking to invest in men and look to, again, take the order of God and reestablish it so you can have a society, we have people who, again, are so greedy, they want to continue hoarding this money and would rather see this money, again, be cankered and worn, and again, have no value, because money only has value if there are people around. But they don't really see that, again, it's them that are the problem, them trying to play God, and God teaching them a lesson that is as old as time. Again, God is not mocked, and as a man shall sow, so he shall reap. And America and the West is reaping a bitter harvest for going out of God's order, and they cannot go out here and try to reshape society, because, again, this is not their job. No, your job is to be a servant and a steward and do what God has told you. But sadly, these people don't want to follow God because they believe that they are gods. But we see, as related to their whole results, they are not gods. No, they're just feeble men who basically still trying to hold on to an empire that is crumbling out into dust and falling straight through their fingers. Now, if you want to pick up some of my books on the SJS Direct Imprint, you can find those books in paperback and Kindle format on Amazon.com, and you can also find them in digital format at other online booksellers like Draft to Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you want to see me take more concepts and ideas to the barbecue, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Esteemed Season of the Witch Girl. The aspiring angel takes on a wicked teenage witch in this action-packed, all-new Esteemed series adventure. Pick up your copy of Esteemed Season of the Witch Girl in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, A Thorn in My Side. The man who rules the world takes on an agent from the CIA from the Black Boule in this all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes' A Thorn in My Side in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.